Hey. This is the Hear Me, Follow Him podcast. Again, the Hear Me, Follow Him podcast. My name is Dabala Asafa, and I got a treat for you guys today. I have a guest today that not only is a father, a doctor, a businessman, but I also consider him a friend. And he has a lot of life experiences that are similar to mine, yet different. So I wanted to bring him on here today to talk about things from a different perspective. I call him Asif, but you guys better put some respect on it and call him Dr. Asif Razak. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give to you guys my man, Dr. Asif Razak. How you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderful. Great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, come on, anytime.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here and discuss with you like we always do.
Hey, come
Uh, you
on.
know, uh, Anytime Damala's in the office, we kind of get sidetracked and we talk about just about everything, world affairs, what's going on, um, how we can try to solve the problems. Um, and like Damala said, we're similar, yet we have a little bit of differences, which is okay, right?
Hey, as
And
it should be.
and but we have an understanding that we are all part of God,
Amen.
and that's what we're trying to have an understanding in our life of what's going on around us, what the meaning is, what the purpose is, how we can leave this earth a better place after we leave. Make it a better place while we're here.
Okay, with that said, though, if you listen to his name, Asif Razak, and you listen to my name, Damala Asafa, you can tell that we're both from Oklahoma, right? Like there's just tons of us out. Now he's from Pakistan and I'm from Nigeria. But one similarity that I noticed when I first started seeing him is the perspective of being raised by immigrant parents.
Mm,
So I want to ask you this: like, I know how my immigrant Nigerian
yeah.
parents were raising me in this American society. So how would you kind of characterize your youth being raised by immigrant parents?
Well, I would say it was. There's so many mixed emotions. One of the things I always understood when I was little is like my parents left their family, their friends, and they moved to United States of America to have a better life, and that was their main goal, and that was and not only for themselves but for their children mainly, and that always kind of made me think like better life. Why couldn't they have a better life over there? What was going on over there, or what are the circumstances, and why can't Pakistan and Nigeria have the same quality of life as here in the United States? So
Okay.
it made me think a lot. I was a deep kid, deep thinker. So I knew my parent. It took a lot of courage,
Oh man.
and then part of me was like,
Yes.
well, I'm American, and my parents, which they are more American now than they are ever Pakistan because they've lived in the States for like
For so
40 some years,
long.
so it's for so long they don't even have the same views, and they've grown and expanded and done their shape shifting and everything to be molded as who they are as grandparents now.
Yes.
And so I just look at that entire evolution, and then in turn we know America is an immigrant nation.
100%.
So
Hey, say that again so people forget
yeah,
this. What is America?
immigrant nation.
Thank you.
And so that really got me thinking that a lot of my friends that I grew up here, mostly were white because this is the area that we live in. They had German backgrounds, Irish, British, whatever European descendants they had.
Hmm.
Um, I was like, don't you all that they're too far removed, from their ancestors, because once you've several generations in,
Tend to forget.
you tend to forget, or there's not an emphasis. And then in this modern age, like what defines America? What's it mean to be American? Do you like pizza? Do you like, so what to me, what defines being American is that we have this diversity and this background, and it's our common ideology in our constitution and those kind of beliefs, that we all have this single philosophy of freedom and laws
Now,
and
let me
things.
interject and
Yeah.
say what you're saying there is what the
Hmm.
Constitution reads like, right? Like we
Right.
all have that, but
Hmm.
in real life, we know that that is different when applied in practice.
Sure.
So again, what I'm trying to see again to reconcile this is
Hmm.
because my parents, I would say, I grew up a little bit in Nigeria, so I remember I grew up with my grandmother, some of the rules there. But when my parents moved here to America to give this quote better life or the better opportunity, 100% facts, they raised us with African culture and standards in an American world.
Hmm.
So I was always confused myself. Like, do I respond like my father taught me to as an African young boy, or do I follow these American rules? And it
Right.
was something that tore at me in my behavior. So I'm wondering,
Hmm.
was your expectations of how
Yeah.
you were as a kid different than what you thought a quote
Well,
American should be?
well, I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things is my parents always never let me forget Pakistan, Pakistan, Pakistan. And they were kind of preaching on like value systems that they were brought up with. They
Yes.
did not want me to forget, even though like America doesn't have way different value systems. Our society is a little bit more free. So what we think is socially accepted here. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Uh, Super Bowl, right? So you see advertisements of beer and people having a good time and alcohol and stuff like that. In Pakistan, you don't see advertisements of beer and alcohol because obviously alcohol is forbidden in Islam. What to get drunk, you know. Same
Right.
thing in Christianity,
Oh
I would
yeah.
say. You know, you're not supposed to be getting plastered drunk, but we live in this Western world where so it's like those are the kind of things that they would I think even a Christian family here going to church down the road would be like son or daughter stay away from that kind of stuff,
Yep.
right?
Oh, 100%.
So I think it was more like that. The other thing was like, you know, in Western culture uh, compared to East and Pakistan, and you got to remember this is the 80s. It's not 2024. Things in Nigeria and Pakistan are probably way different,
Totally different
totally
now.
different. Like even things like dating and you know meeting men and girls and boys, you know, like they're going out or hanging out as friends. Internet has changed things drastically,
Yes.
and so you've seen this constant worldwide shift and evolution that some things just aren't as conservative anymore, and some things aren't really supposed to be too liberal either. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you think that you know, like America is about drugs and alcohol and sex and violence, well, it's not. We live in Appalachia, and I'm still pretty sure that those things are still frowned upon and tabooed upon. But if we were, I don't know, grew up on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, it may have a
Widely
different twist.
accepted.
May have a different twist on your viewpoints and stuff. So I think that's what we need to remember in America is it's we got a bunch of cultures and a bunch of things, a bunch of religions, a bunch of ethnicities, and but I think the value systems that we can draw on to be American. Now this is very important.
Right.
A lot of immigrants, and I'm sure you've had this question, and
Yes.
like kids even. You brought me into this daggone country. You want me to be like American, but you won't. You know, how can I be American? Like I gotta love. It's almost like you gotta love two things
Mm-hmm.
when people are only loving one thing. Like I don't hear half my friends. I gotta love Germany and America. With recent immigrants, is I have to love both places because you still have family and roots and ties and feelings. You know,
Yeah.
and
When you're that first
yeah, when
generation and
you're
that
that
son that
first, second
comes.
generation, like it could be 3 or 4 generations. And I don't think anyone should ever lose that. I would think that most Americans here need to go visit Europe
Hmm.
if that's where the ancestry comes from. Black people here need to go visit Africa
Well,
if that's where the
let me say
ancestry comes
there's
from.
something interesting, and
Yeah.
this is something that's written in the Bible too. Like one of the main things that happens is generation to generation, you tend to forget because I mean, even honestly, look at the America for instance. So Jamestown was all English people. They were sending tobacco back and taxes back, right? But generation after generation, I didn't have that tie to England. They started asking those questions, sort of like we don't pay taxes. So your first generation, which we are going to feel that more. And that's why I wanted to know it from your point of view. Because for mine, like one big thing that happened with me with my parents is my dad's side was Muslim, and my mother's side, they were half Muslim, half Christian. And so I got to grow up in Nigeria for a little bit. And so from the ages of 2 to about 8. So that's all I knew. I didn't know America.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest shock to me was when I came that my mother was like, "What are you doing going to the mosque?" She wanted us to be Christian, but my grandmother was raising us to be Muslim. My father was kind of indifferent,
Right.
but I wanted to always honor, like you're saying, my
Right.
Nigerian roots and my American ways. So it was tough for me. And another thing in Nigeria, like, and this is how my dad raised us, we didn't have a curfew. In the city I grew up in, the curfew was 10 o'clock. Do you remember those commercials?
Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock. Where is your son? Well, I was allowed out. So where was I? Like with
Yeah.
full permission running the streets, but I wasn't in trouble. But again, it was a cultural thing. So did you ever feel that you had anything like that your parents held different than the American?
Well, I mean, just being raised Muslim, we didn't even have a mosque. There was a bunch of Muslim people that got together and they bought a house and they turned it into a mosque. It was a bunch of Arab guys in Huntington that did that, and they formed the first like mosque and gave their own donations out of their pockets and started that up.
How old were you? When you
I was around probably 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so I came to the States when I was 4. So I only have like faint memories, and nothing really like. Um, I even have like preschool memory, a couple of them, but
Yeah.
nothing like that. I lived here for 35 years and then moved. It was always like America, but as soon as I was in America, everything was different. It was we're not in today's society where it's like, oh, it's unfair. Asa's the only Muslim kid in the Boyd County, and let's just conform towards him.
Right.
It was just like suck it up, and who cares? Like, and my parents they didn't sugarcoat anything. Like it is like around Christmas time, son, we don't celebrate Christmas. This is our religion, but there's only like our family, and that's it.
Yeah.
There's no other Muslims to talk to or kids to talk to share your thoughts. And then if you go to Huntington, a mosque, it's a bunch of Arab kids. It wasn't Pakistani kids.
Yeah, so you're even different.
It's even different.
Ooh.
There. So there's a lot of self growth and understanding that yes, there's something different about you. Like as an immigrant, like even in this culture in America, like I tell you, I've been a citizen since the day I came to this country, right? And things like about this country bother me about I can't ever be president. Because those 4 years after, if I was born here versus 4 years over there. So what kind of, and I'm going to get into it because it always comes back to this in America, race. Is like, well, who made that rule and why did they make that rule? And is that acceptable? So if I'm a full-blown citizen, I can go to war, I can die, I can pay taxes, but I just can't be a president because I'm an enemy combatant somehow.
Come on, Arnold Schwarzenegger already climbed that ladder and found out. I mean, I don't know why they made that rule, but per se,
Arnold Schwarzenegger has a Austrian Nazi like what do you call accent too.
But
like, I'm like a little kid. Arnold came when he was like 30.
He did.
It's like
he went all the way up. But that's just kind of
that's because of Hollywood.
That's just how it is.
Nobody voting for him.
But I think theoretically, I mean, just a thought. I think they thought that once you were born here, like back in the day, your allegiance to a land and a county and a flag went so deep that they think that if you were born anywhere else, you have allegiance.
So let me tell you a stat I just found out.
What's that?
1840, right around 1840, you could travel to any country on the planet without a visa.
Nice.
There was no such thing as visas.
Mm-hmm.
After that, after 1840, they started implementing visas worldwide. So what did we know about that time with the British Empire and everything going on like that? It was, well, the reason for that is we don't want your kind to come up in our countries, but we can go share our imperialism to your countries.
All right, that's how that works.
That's how that works. And I just found that out recently over the weekend of because somebody was having a visa discussion and they brought it up.
Hmm.
And they were just like, "Isn't that fascinating?" I think it was something about England going on. They were like something about the population and the people in politics over there, and there's a lot of Indian and Pakistani people over there, right?
Hmm.
But the British took like $30 trillion from India, and then broke that subcontinent up.
See, I know some
You
people
know,
who are like who are
and
really.
and so like
I know
yeah,
people
yeah,
who are really
yeah,
in debt with the history of that, with the British
yeah,
East
yeah.
India Tea Company and all those things. But not to get too down into the history of that. Let me try to draw you back to ask you this
Mhm,
question about your parents, because I know this about
mhm,
mine. Being foreign parents, like they had these high aspirations for me, and my father wanted me to be a lawyer. I wanted to be an accountant. He would
mhm.
have none of that. So as you were growing up, were you also in a home where it felt like they were pushing you towards a certain profession,
Sure.
or okay, elaborate on that.
Most foreign parents will like doctor, engineer, if they're coming out of India, Pakistan.
Hmm.
Second would probably be if you're like a Patel or something in your business. Like I'm
I've
just
noticed
saying,
that. Come
speaking
on,
the
we've
truth.
all
I
noticed
just
them
speaking of,
Patels are
yeah.
everywhere.
I mean, I'm just saying what normally goes along. This says nothing. So if you all get hurt or get offended by things, it's like if you can't share truth, then
Like, come on, they're
it's
good.
not even yeah,
They're
it's not
good.
even
Those are
worth
just
it.
facts. How many
Yeah,
Patels have you seen at a gas station or a hotel
but
or things of that
I'm just
nature?
saying like
That's what they look at.
in those like different parts of the country and this and they're great business people back home too,
Hmm.
and it's like and it's just it's not just one kind. It's just like that's what the jobs you did at home, so those were already successful. You already know how to do that,
Of course. So you're going to
so
come
you're
here
going
and
to
do the
come and
same.
do that, do the same.
But as far as when you were a kid, did that influence your
Well,
decisions?
here it is. If your parents are not educated, right, and it coming from the 80s or whatever, so what they see
Hmm.
is okay. That person has a good life because they had their education. It doesn't matter if like they just needed you to go towards that. So as parents, they can guide you in that direction. Like my dad's not going to be like, you need to be a race car driver.
Man,
You know,
you got lucky.
I mean,
My
like
dad
that.
was like that. Like
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. My immigrant dad was like that.
Mhm.
He stressed in education, but
Yeah.
he was very specific about what the heck he wanted me to do. And
Yeah.
I almost went down that route. So that's cool. You're saying your
Yeah.
dad really didn't. He told you an education, but he didn't pressure the lane.
Well, I mean, it was always like this is what you need to do and be that, and but they weren't having any educated discussions around why or why not. They just said that's good for you.
Because
They
I
didn't
seen
have
that.
any economic discussions, nor did
Hmm.
any aunt or uncle about the debt of school, the years it takes you to sacrifice to go to school,
100.
and all this other stuff, right? They just have this perception. Like if I tell my kids, like, oh, you need to be this, and then I don't give them any other background resource or help because I don't know,
Right.
and I'm just like, okay, you figure it out yourself. And honestly, I mean that's just how it is, and I don't blame them or fault them, or I don't have any kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No ill
resentment,
will.
nothing like that. It just is what it is. But like if I had to, like with my niece and nephew or my kids and stuff, times have changed since the '80s. My parents see the whole different side. They see computers in play. They
Hmm.
see business in play because I got businesses and I got things like that. So they see like I've expanded their mind into the realm of possibilities. And that all just comes with education and learning and time. You know, they were once 20-year-olds like me or 30 or 40-year-olds and raising children.
Yes,
Like
sir.
there is not a book that says, "Oh, this is how to be a great parent or a great grandparent." So, for any young person to give elders a hard time, I think it's out of line on that
Well,
because
let me before you go
yeah,
down that
yeah,
rabbit hole,
yeah,
like I would say this: anybody who can't self-reflect, and I'm looking to you and telling you that
yeah.
anybody who can't self-reflect, of course. Hey, I hate to cut it short. I hope you guys are enjoying the conversation, but I'm going to break it down into a couple parts because we get into a little bit more weightier things with Muslims versus Christianity, this life the way it is now, and chiropractic care and things of that nature. He really is a wealth of knowledge and a very calm and insightful voice, and I love that about Asif. I can get a little rambunctious and a little hyper, but he's just, I love his even keel, just kind of smooth, deliberate, thoughtful thinking. So I thank you for that, Asif. Subscribe, follow. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on all of the major forums. It's the Hear Me, Follow Him podcast. Because at the end of the day, after we do all of our talking, right, this is to point our eyes and our hearts and our minds to Him. So again, thank you. Subscribe, follow, like. It's the Hear Me, Follow Him podcast.